most founders don't even notice when chaos becomes a habit. Today, we're breaking down how dysfunction gets normalized and why the real danger isn't chaos, it's getting used to it. I've seen the deep inner workings of business operations in literally 20 different industries across the last 12 plus years, now coming up to 13. It's absolutely madness how much dysfunction is tolerated. Dysfunction is like a silent creeper because chaos doesn't arrive overnight. It usually sneaks in one small neglected issue at a time. And then eventually you start hating business operations in general and day to day management if you don't deal with what you're facing. You start to hate it, right? If you keep watching, I'll tell you exactly how to avoid this. So let's start with the concept of founder's pride, because many founders secretly wear chaos as like a badge of honor. I thrive under pressure, but really it's just dysfunction dressed up. It's total BS, man. And then there's this concept of false progress, busyness that feels like progress. Just because you're busy running around and things are happening and you've hired X, Y, and Z employee, which you've just replaced, and you've got this new customer, even new customers, even new money entering the system can be misinterpreted as progress. Progress, real actual progress, is measurable momentum. You should be able to read something and say a piece of data and say, we are moving in the right direction. Hitting your financial goals is momentum, right? You're better than you were last year over year increase, month over month increase. This is actual momentum. This is actual motion. Busyness is just sporadic activity, right? Energy expenditure. We're doing over this, we're going over there, we're hiring this person, we're firing this person. The- if you zoom out and take a look and see all of the activities that has happened in the business over the last X period, take a look at it and see if this is actually progress and not just busyness. Because I also work with founders that work just an excruciating amount of hours. Oh man, they've just tolerated this dysfunction. They've completely tolerated working 14 hours a day 6 days a week for the last like 7 years. I've actually seen it. They've tolerated the fact that their systems are so broken and they're so unclear about what really drives the needle forward that they've just tolerated working this much. It doesn't mean that they are happy about it because they're clearly not. Just because you're a founder and you work 14 hours a day, 6 days a week for the last 7 years, by the way, that's actually a previous client of mine, working that much all the time, consistently, forever is total dysfunction if it actually doesn't move the needle, right? If the business doesn't grow year over year, what's the point in working all those hours? That's what I mean by dysfunction and tolerating dysfunction. Because it's great to be working that many hours. I mean, I work those hours often, but it's because I'm progressing, right? Year over year increases, month over month increases is why I tolerate that. It's not dysfunction. That's winning. That's what hard work actually is. And I think there's a lie that founders tell themselves, at least the ones that I've seen, is that they tell this lie that just because they're doing all these activities quickly and with heightened emotion, that that is what progress is to them. Another form of dysfunction that I have personally seen many, many times, and again, not a lot of people say this on YouTube, maybe it's not as sexy, but I'm gonna talk about it. Another thing that founders tolerate as dysfunction is the concept of paying people late, paying suppliers late, paying employees late, and normalizing this. Like, the wording, they craft the messaging, they sell the same sort of lie just because they know that their cash flow is stumped And instead of actually fixing the cash flow problems, they'll just tolerate the dysfunction and normalize these late payments. So, another piece to this normalizing of dysfunction that I see is that your attention and your focus is a centerpiece of your dysfunction. And I think that's the reason why ADD or ADHD is on the rise. You know, adult ADHD in the US, for example, has risen from 6.1% to 10.2% over the past 2 decades. Now it affects 8.7, I think, million adults. That's wild. There's a lot more sporadic attention mechanisms in adult human beings than ever before. And I see that definitely play out a lot in entrepreneurs and founders. Honestly, I see this as a global issue and not just US citizens. I know that piece of data was from the US, but my ideal customer profile, for example, always has some version of ADD or ADHD. So if your attention is everywhere, then you're making short winded choices. Think about it. Your attention span is focused on a specific task for just a short period of time, then by default, the volume of switching between task is larger, right? Which again ties back into the dysfunction aspect because you're not focusing on a key point for long enough to fix it, right? You're like focusing on a problem. Let's say a system is broken, and then 10% into solving the problem, you're over there, and then you're over there, and then you're over here, and then you're over there. And the problem never gets resolved, and dysfunction is therefore tolerated. So if your attention is everywhere, then you're making short-winded decisions. And therefore, there's a constant stream of lack of clarity behind the decision making in the business. By the way, we have a service called Ops Direct. We help founders deal with their business operations problem. It's kind of like having a co-founder for 90 minutes, and we just deal with the issue right then and there. If you're interested in that, if you're having these issues, then you can check out the link in the description as it might help you overcome your obstacles. So you have this global issue of attention deficit disorders going up in adults in the world. I believe in the world. I'm sure it is in the world. The data I provided to you was in the US. And then there's this interconnected issue between attention span decrease. So Dr. Gloria Mark from University of California, Irvine, found that in 2004, people focused on a task for 2.5 minutes. And by 2012, it dropped to 75 seconds. That's a 50% decrease from 2004 to 2012. Okay, so what's the value here? It seems obvious, but just don't tolerate dysfunction. It's not about sweating the little things, but if you're not a technical founder, then be aware of that. Be aware that you will eventually pay for neglecting whatever issue that you're not dealing with. That's what I really wanted to drive home. If you don't have strong hiring processes or employee onboarding processes, and you don't want to deal with that system and set it up properly, you're going to pay for that later. When you onboard a new employee and they don't know what to do because you didn't explain to them how to do their work, whatever standard it is that you're looking for, you're going to pay for that later in 1 or 2 months when you realize that this person's an idiot and they haven't done the work that you assume they know how to do. So eventually you're going to need to pay for this in one way, shape, or form. If dysfunction is everywhere, then you probably need to build better systems. In the next video, I go deep on how to actually build these systems. Go and check it out.